here's your damn music.
Hello, good evening, and welcome. This is Samuel Trapp, and you are listening to International Flavor on Damn Radio, and I'm damn glad to have you. I apologize for that little snafu there at the beginning, and I'm very depressed over it now. What shall I do? What shall I do? I think, I don't know. We'll fix that problem tomorrow. Or maybe I'll cut it out. Nobody will know it, and I've been babbling about it for a minute now, and probably shouldn't have. Anyway, hello, good evening, and welcome. Samuel Trapp, International Flavor, Damn Radio. You can listen to me nightly from 9 p.m. to 10:30 Chicago time, and my topics, I like to talk about international stuff. I like to discuss government overreach. I'm still thinking that last night's show went very, very well. I was very happy to have Mr. Ike Skelton aboard. If you have not heard that discussion about how this man is protecting the county of Camden and what he is doing to stand up to government overreach on his own personal level, at his own personal risk and personal cost to himself, you should go back and listen to that show. You can listen to all our back programs at damnradio.com/podcast. You can always go back to internationalflavor.com, and all of my shows are out there separately. But for all the entire station, that is at damnradio.com/podcasts. If you're ever interested in the schedule at damnradio.com, you should go out and check out damnradio.com/schedule, because it provides everything that you need to know where to go to look for the best and brightest and the people who will stand up for you. And we have some pretty good and interesting topics. I've got an interesting guest coming up tomorrow. I'd rather not talk about it till it actually happens. You know, that kind of thing goes. But today I want to go backward a little bit, because last night was a lengthy discussion. It was 2 hours, and very glad that Ike was with me last night to start his media blitz is what I'm going to call it, to make sure that people understand his position and that the public knows what is going on. We talked for a good long time. There were much expected, much not surprising, but some that I didn't quite anticipate where we would go. And I think that he opened up some great doors for some great discussion going into the future. And so until I get tired, until I run out of things to say on it, and it might take the entire program tonight. I hope not, because I still have some things I want to say on the international level. There's still some craziness going on in the international world, or the international flavor, where the news just tastes better. That's us. And, me, I suppose. If you feel like calling in, you may do so. 573-746-8020. Phone lines are open. This is not a pre-recorded show. I might be doing a couple of those here in the near future, because I got some things coming up where I might be doing a bit of wandering. I may even play that Ike one again this week sometime. I don't know. If JR can feel free to slide that into any time slot in the maybe during the day sometime, if people are listening during the day. I don't know. I thought about talking to him about that and see if he wanted to put it out there for another segment sometime, because that was a really good segment. And I think Ike is planning on talking to some other people on some other programs, including his own. So I certainly plan tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow? No, today's only Monday. I'm always off a day. But Wednesday is the biggest day in radio. That's what I call it anyway. The biggest day in radio, and Ike will be doing his own program. I'm going to be sure to listen in case he follows up on that topic, brings in a couple of other people. And I've got some suggestions for him, because we didn't finish up last night. But what I did was I had an opportunity to go back and I uploaded the recording into well, it doesn't matter how I did it, but I've got a bunch of questions and follow-ups that are things that we started on, we never finished. One of the best calls was the caller who called in, and she asked about some constitutional issues, and her biggest question was where in the Missouri Constitution was the Department of Public Safety, Highway Patrol, whoever, granted authority under the Constitution to install these cameras? Who gave them the power? Well, I got to thinking about it, and I have made the exact same argument about the Missouri bar, the people who kicked my ass, the people who destroyed my life, and how they did it without any constitutional power. And our stellar, if you want to call them that, into Supreme Court of Missouri completely ignored it. And as they do, you gotta bow to the bar, friends and neighbors. You can't ever cross with them. And I asked the same question. Well, the fact is that in Missouri, as in many states, I don't mean to pick on them too bad, is it's rampant. It is absolutely rampant. Ike brought it up last night. He was saying, well, where did all these things with the cameras come from? Why is it, somebody is allowing it, or it wouldn't be happening? Well, it may not be allowed, but if nobody does anything about it, like Ike, and his position is stellar, I think. Well, as good as it can get if you've been charged with a crime, by the way. But he is in a good position. The people support him, as that caller that called in outlined for sure. I support him. There are people who are finding out more about this, and if I can do my part to help people find out about this issue, trust me, I will. And everybody knows that I got a government overreach issue. I truly do. And I think government should be as minimalist as possible, and it's not. And I hate the weaponization of government. It drives me bananas, and I can't stand it when it happens. And the people who use it as a weapon, frankly, I see them as less than. In some ways, they're people who are missing something. They've got to prove that they were right. They've got to prove that they have the power. And they aren't doing it because they think it's the right thing to do. It'd be different if I could believe that they thought they were, but I don't believe that. So, at any rate, this morning after listening to the show again on a drive, I was like, man, I want to see if I missed anything in there and if there's anything that we need to follow up on. And there was a couple of things that I said I was going to do that I'm going to provide for you here tonight. And if it takes the whole show, it takes the whole show. I would hope to get to some of my international topics, but if I don't, I don't. That's how it is, okay? Because we're going to focus on this, and I think it's important that people realize what's going on. So let's talk about this, okay? Let's start with some key threads that we were talking about in there. We had a strong episode with lots of outrage, solidarity between Ike and I, and then I want to look at some legal, political, and frankly popular, like audience materials that we can look into. And one of them is the legal strategy. Okay, whether or not, because we talked about this, whether or not Camden County itself or any of its residents could assert their own standing to file a lawsuit, like a declaratory relief, federal injunctive relief, stuff like that, in order to do something about these cameras. I have a little bit of research on that. I researched it a little bit for you today, and we're going to get to that in here. But I'm going to tell you where we're going to go. There's never been any discussion of whether anyone else's data was used or stored, right? And so to make a Fourth Amendment claim, you got to say that your data was used or stored, okay? And that's anybody that went past one of these signs or one of these stop areas. Now, you could argue that, unlike the case that I downloaded and read the whole thing today, the case from Norfolk that we were talking about last night, I downloaded all of it and I checked it out. And I'm going to give you the legal arguments again as we go in. And there was some curious things in there. These people sued. They didn't sue Flock. They sued the police department, municipality, police chief himself, who installed these 170 cameras in their area. Okay. And this is going to be quite the suit. And we're going to get into that a little bit tonight in a little more detail. Okay. Frankly, what I would like to do is invite any local lawyer or constitutional law expert. I got a couple of feelers out to talk to a couple of them. Now, I'm fairly well versed in them. I've sued the state a lot of times. I understand the immunities. I understand how difficult it is. And, the unfortunate part and why a lot of lawyers don't want to get into this area of the law is because it's extremely difficult to win. You have so many. The state has so many safety nets. The state has so many outs. Any police officer acting badly. It's like I said about Ike last night. If Ike was, instead of being charged with a crime, and it still might work for being charged with a crime too, but his official immunity, if Ike was being charged with a crime because he took this camera down, if he was being sued by somebody because he took the camera down, even if it was Flock, my bet is if Flock sued him, he would be granted official immunity from suit because what he was doing was in his capacity as a as the presiding commissioner of Camden County. And it's a discretionary act. He had the authority to do it, or the authority to order someone else to do it. So surely he could do that. The argument would be, and remember, these things are slanted heavily in favor of the state when you sue somebody in the state, and especially if it's a case of first impression. And this is a case of first impression because, they could argue, but wait a minute, he got charged with a crime for that. So that doesn't mean it might not protect him criminally, but I just about almost, well, I'm not a lawyer anyway, so who gives a crap? But I will guarantee it then, because screw them. It's the way they got out of my suit. It's what happened when I sued. And they granted it even to the Missouri bar, which is BS, because the Missouri bar says they're not an arm of the state. Just like Flock would if you sued them. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. I'm going to try hard not to get sidetracked, right? And but you know me, I always tend to get sidetracked. But I don't want to get sidetracked. I want to stay on this topic and say whether or not somebody can sue. I want to see if there are any lawyers out there who have the stones, I guess it is, to let's go after the state. Let's do it some more. And I don't mean that people don't, but most of them don't not because it's going against the state, but it's because your chances of victory are slim. Your chances of victory, it's a stacked deck. It's against you. All of these protections, even when, and I've had these cases, by the way, where somebody gets shot by a cop, and the cop gets off the hook, or he's done something pretty damn drastic, and he still gets off the hook. It's really an area of the law that pretty much sucks, because these people, a lot of them, and I don't mean this in horribly, and people always say, well, you just hate the police. No, that's not true. I hate the bad ones, and trust me, they exist. And you have these arguments all the time. There was a guy who was raping girls in the Missouri State Pen. And you know what these defense lawyers do? They all get in there and they blame it on the girl. Okay, they blame it on the girl. Okay, and what sort of capacity do you have? Aren't you somebody that's now? A lot of you might support this thing that says what it is. And you know what? God love you. I can see the point, but I also sometimes just don't like it. These immunity things, granting it to a bad actor who's in a serious position of power over these girls, and then he holds out something for them, some kind of little tiny carrot to give them something, but in exchange, oh, by the way, let me unzip my trousers. And then you can have this small benefit of prison life. And they get it and they take it. And who do they blame? They blame the girl. I think those guys are pigs, and this is coming from a guy who did his share of womanizing, But I wasn't a pig. At least I don't think so. And but I would never do anything like that. That is disgusting. And people who do that they ought to be strung up by the nuts, pardon my French. But those guys, that is just not right. And those people are granted immunity, and what do? They blame it on the girl. Well, she wanted to do it. He was trading her, a carton of cigarettes every week, and if she didn't do it, she wanted them cigarettes more than she wanted to not do it. And if she chose to be a prostitute, that's on her, right? Oh yeah, she's got the power. These type of stories are everywhere, people, and it's just wrong. And so, anyway, I just sidetracked myself. Look at that. But we were talking a little bit about putting a class action together, putting something together, or even picking a couple of good candidates to be the plaintiff for somewhat, maybe a class action for everyone in Camden County, or everyone whose data was tracked by these cameras, because even if it shows that you were there every day, I guarantee you that is shows your pattern. It shows this mosaic theory that we were talking about last night, the mosaic of your life, like tracking you on a cell phone tower. They need a warrant for that, and they get away with it because Flock owns the cameras and the county only accesses them, right, when they need to, but they can access them without a warrant. But they need a warrant. But nobody's going to know if they don't go and see who got it. And so I have some ideas for that. And I am willing to, I'm going to pass out the information for you right here on how to do it your damn self. And I sure hope you do. Or hell, we should all put it together and do it in a group, right? And it'd be nice to find a lawyer. Hell, I'll do all the work, okay? One of you local lawyers down there, I'll do all the work. I don't care. I'll be happy to do it. And I'll do it for free. I just want a chunk of money in the end. I'll keep track of my hours, and you can pay me at the end. How about that? We'll work on some of that. So here's what was missed. You know what I want to know? And maybe Ike can fill me in on this, or maybe they'll call in, or we can ask them to come into the show, and we can see what are the positions of the other two commissioners. What are they? I think one of them was together with Ike. And I don't mean there at the scene. I don't know. But he might have been. I don't know. I don't know who that guy was. I remember the name, but I can't remember who it was. But I want to get the names of the other two. Well, I don't need the names, but I want to know their positions. I want to talk about it. And I also think that it would be important to call a special meeting in the county with Ike presiding, and the other one's there to reassert the enforcement of that ordinance or pass some kind of resolution for the support of Ike. What if, prior to his meeting on the 21st of August, where the judge is either supposed to dismiss his case, he can rule on it by then. He probably won't rule on it by then. It's usually not how it goes, but it'll be called up probably before the preliminary hearing, or whether he's granted the preliminary hearing. What if before that? Because last night we talked about citizens showing up to support Ike, showing up in the courtroom for the preliminary hearing to hear what the nonsense is, right? To see what happens, to see if Rochelle I really apologize. That's what I always called her before, but I forget her last name, and I can't remember it. But Rochelle, the prosecutor, to see whether she testifies, which I think is nonsense if she does, because she's the one who encouraged and wrote a letter to the state saying can I use the highway patrol to investigate this? Why don't you do it until we'll turn it over to a special prosecutor so it ain't me? But I'm a witness and I'm telling you to come after this guy, even though the highway patrol was standing there the day he took the sign down. I have serious problems with this. And somebody ought to be going crazy on it. I know, oh, well, I'm doing a pretty good job of that right now. But why don't we publicly ask the other two commissions for their stance on what they think of these cameras and whether they stand. Obviously, this county ordinance got passed somehow, right? Had to have gotten passed somehow, so it's there. I assume they're probably for it, or they do something to say it is not constitutional. I say that the residents call in to the commissioners and ask them their positions, or email them directly. I don't know their email, but we'll figure it out. Go to live@damradio.com and send JR a bunch of emails, because I'm sure he'll get them to the right people. Or you can get them to me and we'll figure it out. Mine is samuelt@internationalflavor.com. And then why don't we consider, I don't have it and I meant to grab it, but I forgot this. This is on my points list of things I prepared for the show tonight, and I forgot to get it. But I want to get somebody, and I imagine that on Wednesday night, Ike will do it. And we should all do it. Everybody should do it that has a program here. Everybody should do a blurb for about 5 minutes about Ike. Every show, or JR could put one as kind of like an advertisement, kind of a commercial. Why don't we take a commercial for Ike and have it run every hour and say, here's how you get involved. Here's how you do it. And I think that ordinance ought to be read on the air, or posted on, either the International Flavor website or I don't know. I don't think Damn Radio has a blog, but we should start a blog or something like that, or even on Facebook. Doesn't matter. People should be talking about it. Either way, this needs to get out. Okay, now let's look at some corporate liability for Flock. Okay, what we didn't cover last night was whether Flock Corporation might have some exposure to civil liability for ignoring a local ordinance. We could go after them for a local ordinance. That is, I didn't get into the legality of it, and I haven't even researched it. But what Ike said, which I tend to believe, is that he said they were the ones who basically kept ownership of the pole, the place where it was put, and everything. Even if it's by a lease, it's not property of the state at that point. It's whether it's a statement of right or whatever it is in that lease. Maybe we should endeavor to get those documents, and how Flock's public-private partnerships work when they refuse to remove equipment after a notice. I haven't read that agreement, but I'm thinking I'm gonna be maybe a segment every week, something on this topic, and we should look at something about corporate complicity. Should Flock be named in a future lawsuit for failing to honor the local law, or should they be charged with a crime? The actors there, because they've broken an ordinance, make them subject to a criminal action, because they won't take down these signs after being informed nicely. And that could be a little problematic, because I'm sure Flock's a corporation, and who would you go after to make sure that they do it? And so that's probably a pipe dream, but we can always think about it, right? And then why don't we, and this is a suggestion for the Ikes of the world, get Flock's public contact info and have them demand answers or transparency. And I may have that already, because in that case in Norfolk, they wanted to intervene. And we'll get to that in a minute. I'm hoping it doesn't. It doesn't. It looks like it's going to go all show people. We're going to have an hour and a half on this, but here we go. Well, we're on a roll now. I also think we ought to put a poll out in like on Ike's Facebook page, somebody's Instagram, wherever, or people can call in and say, I support Ike. And here's a question, and this should be a theoretical question for people to consider. Think of this: judges, lawyers, normal citizens, normal people, because it relates like we said last night to something similar to what Donald Trump went through. It was complete crap what they did to that man. And we're in the same scenario right now. And should a county official face felony charges for enforcing a local ordinance that was passed by voters and never challenged? That's the end. I mean, and it's a solid question. Should a county official face felony charges for enforcing a local ordinance that was passed by voters and never challenged? I mean, for me, that answer's, pretty easy. It's absolutely not. Okay. We should also have an Ask Ike for when Ike is on. I hope people are calling the hell out of his program on Wednesday night and ask him, because he's talking about it now and it's time, right? Maybe, some of these questions. Ike, what would you do differently if you had to do it again? My suggestion, that answer should be not a damn thing different. I'd do it again. Nobody said I couldn't. Nobody, said they couldn't tell me why I shouldn't anyway. It's easy to say, oh, no, you shouldn't. But so, I shouldn't climb up on the roof either because I might fall. All right. Well, what are you telling me? Anyway, what are the top legal arguments? I already have an insight on that. Top legal arguments for August 21, and really legal arguments for a lot of people might not be as interesting to them as it is to me. That's why it's number 2 on my list. Number 3, this one I like. Has anyone in the state government reached out to support you? And if so, why not? Who have you reached out to and sent this to them? You ought to send some stuff on it. And would you support a county lawsuit against Flock? I don't know if you have the basis for that, but maybe a criminal action against him. Why wouldn't a sheriff's deputy or somebody be able to charge the person who put that camera back up with a crime? That seems kind of crazy, huh? This seems to me like the targeting of a whistleblower, seems to me like self-regulation. Well, I don't mean that, not self-regulation. Regulation of political adversaries or people you disagree with using the arm of government, weaponizing the prosecutorial office and prosecutorial discretion. Don't think that Rochelle didn't understand what she was doing, because she did. That's a smart woman. And I have no problem with her. I have a problem with what she did. Okay. And the other one, let's try some sunshine requests. Let me get to that in a minute. And I think that we could write, and I'll put together some nice sample ones for you. By the way, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I don't practice law. Certainly not in the state of Missouri, and nowhere else on top of that. But just in case anyone ever wants to come back and claim, anything that I'm doing is practicing law, I'm giving you ideas as a citizen of the world. Let's all get some sunshine requests, because if you send a sunshine request to, for example, Flock and to the Department of Public Safety, so both, 2 separate sets, to to them under Missouri law, and say that they are have an impact on public, and there's a lot of different places, but Flock will try to say that they're not a public entity, but they have a public contract with the press. So I believe you'd win that argument, but again, I'm no lawyer. What the hell do I know, right? You could go and check that out, but it wouldn't hurt to try. But if you send it to the DPS, that's a horse of a different color. They have to answer. And so if you send sunshine requests to them and say, my name is Jim Bob Brown, and I want to know if my license plate in my vehicle has been tagged by this camera at this location, and I want a complete list of every time that it has, and I want to know what was done with it or where it was stored and by whom. And this is information related to me. And by the way, I think I want it for everyone in my family. I want everyone in my family. And in fact, why don't I ask about it for everyone in the county? I want the entire list of all data. Now, the way they play that game is they tell you it costs a lot of money. Costs some money to get it. Well, let's see what happens if they don't provide it. Because if they turn around like Flock would, just like the Missouri Bar does, okay, they're a bunch of criminals over there, and if they would say, "Oh, geez, no, we're not a state entity. We don't have to. We're not doing anything. We're this private organization here," and like Flock, or a private company, we don't have to do that, and we aren't subject to sunshine law. Then what would happen? You sue them in probably Cole County. There might be an argument to sue them in Camden, and it's a sunshine thing. There are opportunities where the Attorney General should do it for you or has the option to do it for you, but if they're against it, they never will. And trust me, they'll be against it. If from Ike and his meeting at the county, that I still haven't downloaded, by the way, but I intend to, for his meeting on this ordinance back then, that people support it, but law enforcement don't. They want to delve into your lives or have, it's a tool we need to have to go after the bad guy. Not everybody in life is a bad guy, and your job shouldn't be so damn easy. It's we shouldn't make your job so easy. It's already easy enough for the state to destroy a person. Why should we make it any easier just because you don't want to do any work? You don't want to do any investigation. That's I dislike it. At any rate, the other things that we could follow up on is I think I have a sample sunshine letter here for you with some stuff and some other discussions. I'm going to introduce to you the Norfolk, Virginia case, but I'm going to quote directly from the motion to dismiss the ruling. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what happened in there, and you can kind of use it as a follow-up or a primer for how you do your own, because I think it would be why not? They've taken this to the next level already. Somebody ought to move in and go further. You know what? There's nothing that says you can't represent yourself in federal court or anything like that, and I'm pretty good at this stuff. I should probably request my information from that camera because I believe I've been by it, or I'll just come down and drive by it, 6-7 times and make a loop every day. Create, like me and Ike were talking about yesterday. There's nothing wrong with it. We know it's there. They're putting it up there and they're collecting data. Why don't we have them collect my data and then I'll file it? I'll do it for free. I'll file it myself, pro se, and go after them. I know how to do it. It's that's not practicing law. That's representing myself. It's I'm perfectly allowed to do that. That's a hell of an idea. I just thought of that just now. Maybe I just might have to do something like that. Wouldn't that be a lot of fun, friends and neighbors? I think it would. I think it would be rather comical to do so. And so perhaps I will. Let's see. Well, let's get into a little bit about the Norfolk suit, okay? This was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, and they denied after. It's an interesting case because I went through the whole docket. Has a 100 and something docket entries in there, so it's a pretty big deal. Let me see. I might even still have it up here on my computer. Let me look at it real quick. Here it is. Yeah, I still do. And so it was filed on October 21st of last year. Okay. And that went all the way through. Right now, the status is there's 97 docket entries that have been entered. And the latest is a notice. Oh, it's going to make me log in again. Hold on. We'll be right there. And we shall get, I want that. Oh. Sorry about that. Shouldn't be making them crazy noises. Should just be it might make me search the whole damn thing again. I hope not. Nope, looks like it stayed up. So this one says notice by Crystal Arrington. That's one of the plaintiffs, and Lee Schmidt. They have a memorandum in support of a motion and a whole bunch of exhibits that they filed. So they have a request for a hearing, and they set the motions, and then the judge way back when ordered a new, let's see, this happened on June the 20th. The judge set a July, blah, blah, blah. Scheduling order dates have been amended. The final pretrial conference reset is for January 16, 2026 at 10 a.m. in Norfolk. And its bench trial has been reset for February the 3rd. No jury, bench, okay? And so that is where we are right now. That trial is set for next February, okay? And fairly twice, the Flock Corporation, who is not a party to this action, this cause of action, here's the complaint. Let's pull it up. I have it right over here. This complaint that they have under my Ike docs. Let's get there. The bloody blah. Ooh, that's the felony complaint against Ike. That is not what I want. So, sorry, I am still chasing documents. Here is the complaint that was filed. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit about the parties and about how they pleaded it to get their proper standing. Remember Ike talking about the standing. And so basically they did some introductory paragraphs, which is pretty common. The complaint is 24 pages long, and it's a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. Okay. And it's a declaratory judgment, which is, basically asking the court to declare that what is happening is incorrect. And then you get things like, you can have attorney fees and stuff like that for going through this. And so what they've asked to be awarded in the end, their request for relief has several paragraphs here, all the way A to G, okay? So the first one, they want to declare that defendants' policies, that's the City of Norfolk, Norfolk Police Department, and Mark Talbot, who's the Norfolk Chief Police, in his official capacity, sued for doing his job or making discretionary positions in his job, okay? Summary judgment hasn't occurred yet, and that's a big deal too, because summary judgment is so first they do the motion to dismiss, then they do all these other things, then they'll file a second motion to dismiss, and then they'll file a summary judgment motion. That's how it works in federal court, especially if you're going against an actor like that, and the person who's doing his job carrying this out discretionary, he might be let off. Who knows what'll happen? But that's why they're asking for declaratory and injunctive relief. They're not. That's totally different than suing the guy for, I don't know, beating you up on the job or something, or trading cigarettes for blowjobs in the jail. Okay, that takes some discretion there, or indiscretion, as the case may be. So let's go A through G. A says declaring plaintiff's policies and customs described in the complaint are unlawful and violate the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. Right, permanently enjoining defendants from operating flock cameras, ordering the defendants to delete all images, records, and other data generated by the flock camera, D, permanently enjoining defendants and their officers, employees, agents, and any other acting on their behalf to, hang on one second, I'm going to make sure that I haven't messed up the streaming of what's going on, because something weird is going on, but I'll get back to it, and I'll be a good human when I do. Sorry about that. I was doing something twice there, and I didn't want to mess it up. Permanently enjoining. And then E, permanently enjoining defendants and their officers, employees, agents from accessing any of these records. So they can no longer use them to collect images. They can no longer access any of the images they have collected. They have to delete them all. And here are the kickers: awarding plaintiffs' counsel reasonable attorney fees and litigation costs, including but not limited to fees, cost disbursements pursuant to 42 U.S.C. 1988, and ordering any other relief to which plaintiffs are entitled, regardless whether they've asked for it in the complaint or not. Okay, so as part of that, they could award damages for interference with their constitutional rights by doing this. And so that would be the next step. So this is very well done. And plus, they've been pretty successful where they're going so far. So that's the complaint and what they have asked for it. But they have a lot of facts in here. But let's get to where the parties are and say that here's who the plaintiffs are. City of Norfolk, City of Police Department. The City of Police Department have contracted with the tech company called Flock to blanket Norfolk with 172 advanced automatic license plate reader cameras. These powerful cameras photograph every car that passes. Unlike a police officer posted at an intersection, the cameras never blink, they never sleep, and they see and remember everything. Every passing car is captured, and its license plate and other features are analyzed using proprietary machine learning programs like Flock's own vehicle fingerprint. All of that surveillance creates a detailed record of where every driver in Norfolk has gone. Anyone with access to the database can go back in time and see where a car was on any given day. They can track its movements across at least the past 30 days, creating a detailed map of the driver's movements. The city's police chief has boasted that it would be difficult to drive anywhere of any distance without running into a camera somewhere. In Norfolk, no one can escape the government's 172 unblinking eyes, and the city's dragnet is only expanding. On September 24, 2024, the chief of police announced plans to acquire 65 more. 65. You need a 235. These cameras make surveillance not just possible, but easy. Flock provides advanced search and artificial intelligence functions. The sort of tracking that would have taken days of effort, multiple officers, and significant resources a decade ago now is a few mouse clicks away. Officers can output a list of locations a car was seen, create lists of cars that visited specific locations, even track cars that are seen together. There are no meaningful restrictions on an officer's access to this information. An officer need only to watch Flock's orientation video and create a login to get access. After that, the department requires them to log in and use Flock's database throughout the entire shift. Although the police department's policy requires officers use the information for law enforcement only, no one monitors their use. Every city officer can search the database whenever they want for whatever they want. No need to seek approval. All of this is done without a warrant. No officer ever has to establish probable cause, swear to the facts in a warrant, and await the approval of a neutral judge. The cameras take photographs and store the information of every driver that passes, suspect or not. The photographs and information are available to any officer in the city to use as they see fit for the next 30 days. And if city officials download the photos and information during that 30-day window, there is no meaningful restraint on how long they can hold that information or how it may be used. Worse still, Flock maintains a central database with over 1 billion license plate reads every month. So even after a driver leaves the city, officers can keep following them in more than 5,000 communities where Flock currently has cameras. Likewise, any person with access to Flock's database can access the city's information, potentially without the city even knowing about it. Ominously, the city's police chief has said this creates a nice curtain of technology for the city and the surrounding area. Plaintiffs are ordinary, everyday people. Now here we get to who these plaintiffs are and how we create some of our own. We need to do this and join in and get a different judge and have competing not competing, correlating causes of action. Jesus, these guys have done a good job of what they're doing, and there's no reason it shouldn't be put into Missouri. Scare the crap out of our people that are doing this nonsense. Plaintiffs are every day, and now let's describe the plaintiffs and who you need to be to file suit, right? Plaintiffs are ordinary, everyday people who live and work in Norfolk. Nearly every day, they drive past the city's automatic license plate reader as they go to work, to the store, to the kids' school, to church, or to meet friends and family. Like most people, they try to maintain a reasonable amount of privacy in their lives, and they find it downright creepy that the city's 172 unblinking eyes follow them as they go about their day, noting where they are and when, and storing their movements in a government database for any officer to see. They worry about how someone might use or misuse that information, especially given the mineral restrictions on access. The city's camera surveillance system violates the Fourth Amendment. So these are just regular people who say they drive past these automatic cameras. That gives you standing, like I said last night, or presumed last night, and I've looked into it some, and it sure does, peeps, because you can't go by that camera and not be recorded. So we've got plaintiffs, people. And this isn't about money. This is about stopping this nonsense, is what this is about. The city's camera surveillance system violates the Fourth Amendment. Tracking the whole of a person's public movements over at least 30 days is a search. The city is gathering information about everyone who drives past any of its 172 cameras to facilitate investigating crimes. That's why they say they're doing it. That's the only reason they could have to do it. In doing so, this violates the long-standing societal expectation that people's movements and association over an extended period of time are their business alone. And because the city does all of this without a warrant. What if I have 3 girlfriends on 3 different ends of town? What if I have that? And I have to get divorced because I have, a girlfriend in each part of town, and every Thursday I go see this one, every Wednesday I go see that one, and every Friday and Monday I go see my favorite, right? What if that is the case and that this information is available and people know it's out there? And then let's suppose that my wife is a police officer. She has access to that information and can, without hiring a PI or doing anything, go and access it. Like Ike said last night, there are police officers, plenty of them, that have done this. And I've actually been involved in a couple of those years ago. And because don't pretend that cops don't misuse this info. Trust me, they can find you if they want to. And now, extremely easily. So, and because of this, And because the city does all of this without a warrant, instead of having individual officers decide for themselves when and how to access an unprecedented catalog of every person's movement throughout Norfolk and beyond, the city's searches are unreasonable. This is exactly the type of two permeating police surveillance, that's Carpenter versus United States is being referred to there. The Fourth Amendment was adopted to prevent, and this lawsuit seeks to put an end to it. Those are the facts of the case, okay, that they laid out. I read them all to you. The parties are Lee Schmidt and Crystal Arrington, the plaintiffs anyway. And they have standing, nobody's asked to have that thrown out yet that I'm aware of. And tell you what, this I knew a little bit about what Ike was going through, but today is when I, finally woke up to what the hell was going on. Okay, and what Ike is doing is protecting people, and Ike is doing something that he ought to be honored for doing, not charged with a crime for doing. This is BS and nonsense. What is happening to him, and I hope he keeps up the fight, and I'm pretty sure that he will. So, and if you can support him, I don't remember the link, but listen to my show and Ike's show, because if you didn't catch it all, you need to listen to it over and over, because there's some important topics in there. And I'm sure he's going to talk about it on, well, I'm not sure, but I'm presuming that he's going to at least mention it on his own program on Wednesday. And I know I'm going to be listening for him to do so, because I like Ike. Wasn't that a button for the Eisenhower dude? I remember that from. He should get, when he runs for Senate, he should get those "I like Ike" buttons and copy them, and get some nostalgia going. Right? He's already got the name, because I don't want to call it luck of the draw, because his parents were smart. That's the way it is, because wasn't that guy in office for 100 years? Maybe Ike will be too. Who knows? At any rate, let's talk about the other interesting part of this case. Because what happened next was Flock wanted to jump into the case. Well, I guarantee you they won in, because they've got the high dollar lawyers, and they got a lot of them. And they're going after this. And instead, these people, very intelligently, are going after just the city of Norfolk. Now, just the city of Norfolk, I'm sure they have some reasonably good insurance company lawyers too. The way that usually works is the city has to pay, let's call it the first, they have a deductible or a self-pay or something like that. So if they get sued, usually it's not like a typical insurance plan. It's like they have to pay it's a regular insurance plan, but instead of a deductible, they have some kind of a front pay that they got to pay. Like, call it $30,000 and call it 50. Who knows what it is? It could be, for a city that big, it could be more. Depending on how they put it together. It could be that they're self-insured, that they would have to pay all of this. But either way, they're getting their lawyers, and the lawyers are not from the Flock Corporation that has 5,000 cities across the nation that they are tagging into and getting huge amounts of money from. So Flock, once in, they got to protect what they're doing. They can't have some local yokel sheriff or police chief controlling whether they get booted out of the business because they're violating the Fourth Amendment. But that's why more of these cases have to be filed. So they filed a motion to intervene, and I found that when I was looking through the case, and it was denied, and it was denied twice. Okay, and here's what the court said. Okay, they said, and the reason they wanted to be involved, let's see, I did download that too. Maybe it'd be worth a little bit of time to download that, their motion to intervene. Flock. Here they are, and it's pretty short, so I'll just read it to you. Flock Group Incorporated, doing business as Flock Safety, through counsel, moves this court for an order allowing it to intervene as a party in this action. Filing motion to intervene pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 24A, or in the alternative, Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 24B. Flock satisfies the requirements for intervention as a matter of right under 24A because the motion is timely. It has a direct and substantial interest in the litigation that would be impaired absent their intervention, right? And Flock's interest is not adequately represented by the current parties. Wonder what their basis for that is. That'll be interesting. In the alternative, Flock satisfies the requirements for permissive intervention under Rule 24B because its motion is timely and it has a claim or defense that shares a common question of law or fact with the action. Nor will Flock's intervention unduly delay the case or prejudice a party. The grounds and authority in support of this motion are set forth in Exhibit 1 of the proposed order and attached to Exhibit 1, a proposed order granting relief and is attached as the proposed answer. And defendant doesn't oppose, but plaintiff does. Plaintiff doesn't want to have them involved. Well, the judge denied that motion. Okay, and here's a summary of why. I have the whole order, but it's too long. I don't want to read it. So, with both the motion to intervene and the order denying, what it says is the district court denied it because, one, Flock's interests were already represented. The court found that Flock's interests were sufficiently aligned with the city of Norfolk, which was already defending the use of the license plate readers. Although Flock tried to argue that the city might not raise certain technical or proprietary defenses, the court said Rule 24A, intervention in a matter of right, does not apply when adequate representation already exists. Now, I never read the laws or went through all this quizzing on this. While Flock argues that its interests diverge in subtle ways, the city of Norfolk has every incentive to defend the legality of the systems, including its own partnership with Flock, and that is enough. Okay. Number two, the judge said Flock's participation would complicate the case. Under Rule 24B, permissive intervention, the court said letting Flock in would cause delay, it would complicate the issues before the court, and it would expand discovery unnecessarily, especially regarding proprietary systems and data handling. Yeah, I mean, really, who cares about proprietary systems and data handling? Nobody. The question is whether or not it exceeds or meets an unreasonable search, or if it's required to have a warrant before such a search. Anyway, permitting intervention here would risk sidetracking the constitutional analysis with commercial and contractual minutia. Nobody gives a crap about money, is what he's saying. We care about the Constitution. This it's a pretty good order, by the way. Flock could still be heard as amicus. And for those of you who don't know, an amicus is, and it's done quite a bit in like a state will throw in an amicus. Let's say state of Missouri sues the U.S. government for whether or not funds should be used for this. Well, another state could say, hey, we want to file something too. We don't need to be a party because this rule will apply to everybody if the Supreme Court does it. But we're going to file an amicus brief. An amicus basically is a friend of the court brief, somebody who also has a dog in the hunt as far as the ruling goes. So that's called an amicus brief. When somebody says, "What? Wait a minute, Judge. I have an interest in that. Don't just rule it only as related to these people. You got to think that there are other people out there who have a similar and it's not going to be exactly the same because a state's a little bit different, and we also have a say. Can we throw something out? And it can be whether it's a plaintiff or a defendant. Either way that goes. And most time courts will allow that kind of thing if their interests are similarly situated and they would have a slight potential that they could come in as an intervener. Well, here they're saying, well, Flock, you want to be heard as an amicus curiae, put it out there, but don't try to complicate this matter with your contract BS. We don't need to know. Or I don't want to know. Just tell me what it is. Okay. Basically, Flock wanted in. Oh, they want in, and they want in bad because they want to confuse this. But the court said, nice try. Government's already doing your job. It's the basics of it. So when private surveillance teams up with public police, they get to call it a partnership, and the court called it a redundant representation. So I'm liking the results in this case so far, and I hope it continues to come on. Flock safety systems might be sharp, but their legal arguments didn't impress the judge. That is good stuff. Okay. Heck, do you trust private companies to collect your license plate data and sell it to the government and commercial users? Because remember, last night, and I always focus on the car repo guy. Imagine that. Imagine you, I don't know what, have 4 payments that you didn't make in Norfolk, Virginia. Or wait a minute, that you live in Missouri, but you go travel to Norfolk and you drive out there and you have a bad problem. You're coming to pick up some money to pay off your payment. I'm making this up totally on the fly, but you drive past one of these cameras, somebody steals your car. Somebody comes and loads it up, goes, hey man, this car needs to be repoed. You go anywhere in the country, you could run into that. Anywhere they have these flocks, because I guarantee you they're selling this information. And I guarantee you that there are exceptions that allow them, private individuals, to get this data. And I don't know that even doing, I'd love to see this stopped in its tracks. I'm not so sure it is. Everybody needs to start buying that, although they're getting better and better at this too. There's that spray stuff you can spray on your license plate and allegedly makes it camera proof. But, a lot of places that covering the license plate is illegal, but the spray is not. I'm not sure what to do, but and I haven't looked at that in a long, long time. I remember looking into it for somebody years ago who said, well, what if I am speeding? And he goes, what if I'm not speeding? I just don't want these guys reading my license plate every time I go through. I don't, whether I'm speeding or not. Well, most of the speed cameras only click on if you're speeding. Then they click, take your picture. Okay, I can understand that. But these ones that are monitoring 24/7, oh, baby. What else do we have that we can talk about regarding this? Okay, let's talk about how the Norfolk plaintiffs proved their own standing. They were shown to have standing because they have a concrete injury. They alleged that they have daily tracking by flock cameras, creation of a digital dossier of their comings and goings, warrantless surveillance of private activity through pattern aggregation. Remember, the police chief says, no one can escape the city's 172 unblinking eyes. So the surveillance isn't theoretical. They've been tracked as residents of Norfolk. Now, if cameras are there in Camden County, trust me, you're being tracked. They are there. The injury came directly from the city policy authorizing the flock ALPR dragnet. Now, ours doesn't authorize it. And so we could transfer if we sued. So let's say you sued a county. Let's say you sue Ike. And stay with me on here. I don't want you to sue Ike, but stay with me here a second on why. Because you sue Ike. And Ike says, wait a minute, I have an ordinance. And he moves to join Flock. Or you sue Ike and you sue Flock. And so Flock, who wants to be in, Ike can go, look, I'm the guy trying to get rid of this thing all along. Plaintiff Sam over here, who's doing this pro se and is suing Ike because Ike has fought against these cameras and input something against the camera. And Ike says he doesn't like it because there was a case out there called Carpenter, and he's been following this case called Wright in Norfolk, and he says not to do this, and he's against these things anyway as an unreasonable search and seizure. And Sam's got a good case but Sam is suing the county because the county has this, is allowing this to happen. So the county has a risk. The county has a risk because the county has an ordinance that they are not enforcing. They're not enforcing it, and they're allowing Flock to have this. Why can't I sue the county, and the county has to pay? Okay, well, then what Ike does is he goes, wait a minute. Number one, I got this thing called official immunity, and I got qualified immunity because I'm doing my job. And I tried to do my job, and they charged me with a crime, by the way. And so I want to make sure that the court is aware that I tried to do my job, and Flock fought me, along with the state of Missouri. We'll bring in the state of Missouri, the Department of Public Safety, those a-holes who came and investigated me, Rochelle Christensen, who went outside of her, or it's not Christensen again, I said it wrong, whatever it is, somebody will send me something, tell me who the right name is, and we can go from there. So it'll be, the case is getting better as I talk myself into filing it. I'm getting there, It's, I don't know what this is, but okay. Well, there you have. I thought I might have had an important text from somebody of importance because I heard the damn thing go off and thought it might be related to the shoe, but it's not. I just called it a shoe because that's what JR does. Anyway, there's a causal connection. So remember, this is my lawsuit. We're prepping this lawsuit even now. So then we have to say that because we have a causal connection, the surveillance isn't theoretical. They are actively being tracked, and the injury comes directly from the policy of authorizing the Flock ALPRs, and then the injunction will halt the system and eliminate the injury. Okay, but I go a step further because Ike goes a step further in addition to his injunction, and he says, listen, this is Article 3 standing Constitution, and it's got a strong privacy and constitutional rights slant, similar to the Carpenter case, which talked about cell phone towers and having a warrant to track you. This is good stuff, and it needs to be fought, people, and I like it. Okay, so now let's talk about why the court just didn't grant the motion to dismiss. Okay, so basically, even though they, filed a decent claim, of course they file a 12B6 motion to dismiss the case. Plaintiffs allege and why it was not granted is because the plaintiffs allege a violation of a clearly established right. You have a very clear right. They allege that aggregate tracking without a warrant or an individual suspicion of them violates the Fourth Amendment. I happen to agree. Courts are open increasingly to this theory under the Mosaic doctrine outlined in Carpenter. Remember, I was talking about the Mosaic theory, the Mosaic doctrine. Basically, it's keeping track of a pattern of your life that anybody can access. And that is nonsense. They shouldn't be able to do that. And they do all the time, but they shouldn't. State action was clear. The state was clearly doing this. The surveillance is not just private. It's a government partnership. The city of Norfolk installed the cameras and used the data. We're doing the same. So we can probably get there and say it's not just private. The facts in dispute. The court found that the legal validity of the dragnet surveillance required more facts. They're allowing discovery in this case. Dismissal of the pleading at this stage would be premature. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be another one. And you can bet that there will be a summary judgment motion at the end or closer to the end. And summary judgment means after you've developed all of the facts, that even if all the facts are just as you say, Even so, you still can't win. And a judge makes that determination. So the judge is ruling on this case anyway. There's no jury trial demanded, nothing like that. Okay, how does this apply to Camden County? So standing in Missouri, Ike might not have standing to challenge the surveillance because he may not have been directly tracked. Although I assume he was. He's probably been by those places too. But a lot of citizens of Camden County do have standing if they pass in front of this camera routinely and their data is stored, used, or shared without consent. And my bet is it is. So how do we find plaintiffs in Camden County? Let's see. Have you seen this camera on Ballpark Road or the one at Deerberg's? Do you pass by them daily? Do you believe your license plate or bumper sticker data is being collected? If so, we invite you to contact your local councilman named Ike Skelton, or send your information to live@damradio.com, or even to Samuel T. at International Flavor, and we'll decide what to do next. We'll post some stuff. We'll continue to talk about it. We'll tell you how to represent yourself. I think I might represent myself. It could be a lot of fun. We might have to do this. This could be an entertaining diversion. So I invite you to contact us. Contact me. Could the county sue on behalf of the citizens? It's possible, but very difficult. Okay, there's some key tests. There's standing is usually reserved for a state, not a county. Okay, a county might file a declaratory action to clarify whether it must comply with the state's MOU or whether its own ordinance is valid. I say they ought to do both. Okay, in Camden County, that Ike ought to have the city councilor, the lawyer for the, or I'm sorry, the county lawyer, the city for the lawyer, whatever they call him in that county, have him sue under the MOU, sue Flock, sue the other person who signed the MOU, which happens to be the sheriff, and see whether or not, and for two things. One, ask whether the ordinance is valid. Is this a valid ordinance? Let the court decide. You have appeal processes. You go all the way to Supreme Court, but have the county dude do it. Why not? What else is he doing? Jeff Green's not the dude anymore, is what I understand. I always liked that guy. I haven't seen him in 100 years, but he's always a nice guy. Let's see. So, and they could have a declaratory action filed to see. Remember, there are two things I said. Number one, is the ordinance valid? Number two, must they comply with the state MOU? This is a cause of action declaratory relief. Ike's best action still might be to have some sort of class action where he encourages some people, whoever they are, find one person to file suit who can find out whether he's been collected. We talked earlier about sunshine law requests. Okay. Here's what I say. Explore the sunshine law-based challenges to gathering Flock's data shared policies. Okay. Why? And now here's what they're going to do. They're going to claim that they're a private corporation. Okay. So your request, when you file this sunshine letter, you and go to I've written so many of them, it's not even funny. But we could do some sunshine law requests, okay, and figure out how to get them together. Maybe I'll put one together for Ike, and he can have it available to him for his county counselor to review, right? And he could do that and say, let's start collecting this data. Let's find out who all they have. There's nothing that says Ike can't request it, because his own car might be in there. Ike's own car is probably being examined. I'm sure it is. All of them are. Everyone's car is being checked out. And so I think it's now I'm getting all worked up about this case. I'm going to have to go out and file it, right? So let's Let's figure out how we do this. I think this could be rather fun, and we could talk about this some more as we go along. I think that we should talk about this some more, and we can keep on trucking. Let's say that we have. I have so many cases that I could have reviewed with you, but like I said, Ike could sue on behalf of probably could sue on behalf of everybody, but you're probably better off with somebody who just had their data collected, right? We already talked about why the motion to dismiss was denied, the application to Camden County, finding of potential plaintiffs, and then sunshine requests. Okay. And here I show these sample sunshine requests because I drafted one. Okay. And basically the sheriff signed, I say you target the sheriff's department because the sheriff signed the MOU. So basically, targeting the sheriff's office with a sunshine law request is a perfect first strike. Okay. Since the sheriff signed the MOU with Flock, he has 1, direct administrative custody of the cameras and their data access, or, the data to them. 2, a duty to comply with open records law. And 3, no legal privilege to conceal contracts, correspondence, or usage data, right? So a sample request would be the target is the Camden County Sheriff, subjects Flock Safety LPR camera systems. And the letter says as follows. All of the stuff, it goes to sheriff at camdensheriff.org, which I found online, says Sheriff Tony Helms, Camden County Sheriff, 1 Court Circle Northwest, Camdenton, Missouri, 65020 from. You list your name. And you can send these by email. It's perfectly allowed, and they have 72 hours to respond. And I believe the email that we found online was sheriff@camdensheriff.org. That might not be correct. There might be a better one you find online. But basically, you put a reference, request for public records pursuant to Missouri Sunshine Law, Chapter 610, Revised Statute of Missouri. Dear Sheriff Helms, pursuant to the Missouri Sunshine Law, Chapter 610 of Revised Statute of Missouri, I respectfully request access to or copies of the following records. Number 1, all contracts, memorandums of understanding, agreements, or other authorizations entered into between Camden County Sheriff's Department and Flock Group, Inc., Flock Safety, regarding the use, installation, maintenance, or data sharing of automatic license plates, readers, or similar camera surveillance systems. 2, all emails, correspondence, internal memos, or communication between your office and any representative of Flock Group from January 1, 2022, and you could go back further, to the present, including but not limited to requests for installation or access, discussions of data access policies, legal opinions, or reviews. Number 3, location data indicating where Flock cameras are deployed within Camden County. 4, any logs or reports indicating how many license plates have been scanned. 2, whether any scans were shared with third parties. 3, whether any data was sold, archived, or shared beyond Camden County. All policies or usage protocols governing access, storage, retention, or review of data gathered by Flock Safety Systems is number 5, the last one. Please provide the records in electronic format, PDF preferred if possible. If the fee exceeds $50, please inform me before fulfilling the request. Under Missouri law, I am entitled to a response within 3 business days. If the request is denied in whole or in part, please provide a written explanation citing the specific statutory exemption justifying this denial. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Ike Skelton, Samuel Trapp, whoever we choose. And anyone can use that letter and can print that. Or if you wish to send me an email to samuelt@internationalflavor.com, I will happily share you a Word version of that you can chop up or change any way you like. And you can send your own. And I think that a lot of people ought to do it, and that a lot of people ought to get this data. And it ought to not be just to Camden County. It ought to be everywhere. Because what if Sam, like I said, Sam has, his three girlfriends, that he's driving to visit every other day, that he has to go and see. And we have cops that find out that I do this, and they don't like me getting away with this, and so they want to go rat me out. And it's they have access to it. Why not? They're following me, and just out of curiosity, they're going to look it up and find out where I am, and go, that little a-hole's been trying to hide from us forever, and now we know where he is. Think about this. This has an impact in a lot of ways of life. Okay. Well, and you know what? I have been 100-mile-an-hour blabbermouthing since since the show started at 9:00, and I had some news I wanted to get to, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Let's make sure that we keep on the same topic. It's a fun topic, and so I apologize that Ike is going through the things that Ike is going through, but everybody should be aware of what Ike is going through, and everybody should support him in his fight. And by the way, that is whether or not you agree with what he did or not. There's so many different variants here of whether you agree with the police, that they ought to be, it's another tool of the police. We want to give it to our police. Oh yeah, I felt the same way after 9/11 when we gave up everything to the feds, and now they passed this huge surveillance, and nobody says a word about it anymore. That they can do all kinds of things that they never could do before in the name of safety. It's the same thing you get with the COVID arguments. It's the same thing we get. Well, geez, your government workers are just good people trying to do their jobs. Well, the Camden County residents are just good people trying to live without the interference of people trying to do their job more easily. It's okay, fine. It's a tool, but you better trust everybody that has access to it that they're not going to use it to find out if Sam has three girlfriends or not. They're not going to use it to find out if their wife is cheating on them, or their girlfriend went out with her girlfriends or was really going to meet a guy, or that they're not misusing all this stuff. And my history is government employees just can't help it. If the tool is there, they're gonna use it, and they're gonna use it improperly from time to time. And one day that might affect you. Those are people who have a higher duty, I believe. When you are serving the people and you're not just out to make money or working for your boss, you really do have a higher duty to be above the BS that comes out. And my history says that is not the case with, unfortunately, far more government employees than I like to think is reasonable. I always told people that if you go to Walmart, and I hate to pick out Walmart, but it's a good example. Pick any store you want, okay? So you don't have to worry that I'm beating up on Walmarters. But think about this. You got, at every Walmart, you got 50 cashier employees. Of those employees, there's one or two who are pulling $1 out of every fifth transaction because they don't think they'll get caught. They're taking advantage. They're taking a candy bar home at the end of the shift. They're sneaking a box out the back and putting it by the dumpster, and then driving around later and picking it up, taking it home. Those people are out there, okay? And that is part of life, and it's also part of government life. And so if these tools are out there, these people are using them. And I don't mean to make more of it than what it is. I wish that I was a true believer that these people are all out for the good of the community just as well, right? Ike's a government employee, right? He was elected, so that's a little bit different. But Ike technically, and is a government person. We should be watching out, making sure that he's doing the right things, quizzing him. But it's like he said last night: we have the authority to vote him out of office. We have the authority to not elect, to primary him out the next time. If he's not doing his job, somebody else is going to want to do it. But Ike is one of the good guys. And I'm telling you, they're hard to find in government. Now, that's unfair in a lot of respects, but that's my history all the way across the board. There are not a lot of people that are willing to help you get through something on the government level, but there are quite a few who'd help target you any chance they get. And there are police officers out there who take great pleasure in going after people and say, well, I got all the power. And it's a sad thing because a lot of policemen have a very serious power complex and a God complex, and they don't believe in being told no, not by anyone. And they don't believe in not being able to get you. And, Ike said something about it with respect to finding probable cause. How do you pull over every car that comes out of a parking lot? Call it in Lake Ozark down on the Strip, right? So down the Strip, 1:00 in the morning, there's always 3 cops sitting over by Risky's, right? And every time somebody comes out of the strip club or comes out of the Risky's or anywhere down there, they'll sit and gab for a while. These cops will have their windows open and chat with each other. And then as soon as 1:00 rolls along, they'll start pulling people over. And do they really have probable cause? Well, you were in a bar. What does that mean? You were drinking? They're not supposed to pull you around over because you've been in a bar. They're supposed to pull you over because they have probable cause to believe you did something, right? These are important things that Ike is fighting. You may not agree with what he's talking about. If you don't, there's a means to say that you don't, but you don't charge him with a crime. Rochelle, you don't go out of your way to make sure that happens. I think that was a dastardly deed. I really do. And I think you ought to think about that before you do something like it again. And, by the way, I think you're generally a nice person, at least from what I remember of you. Haven't seen you in a while, but there you have it. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up because we're nearing the end of the show. And I want to tell you that I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I want you to continue to do so. I'm here every night from 9:00 until 10:30, Chicago time or Lake time. I am here. And, this is a great topic. Tomorrow I'm going to get to some of the war footing and some of the Donald Trump stuff. I really, but I might have a bigger fish to fry because I've been seeking a couple of things. At any rate, if you ever want to look at our schedule at damradio.com, damradio.com/schedule, and it gives you all the programs and how to listen to them. Internationalflavor.com is my web location where each and every show that I do is uploaded for your listening pleasure. And you can go back and listen to any of them, including the Ike show from last night. And I encourage you to go and do that if you haven't done so yet. And make sure that you pay attention to it and pay attention to things that are going on. I wish you all a very good evening. And what else can I say? I feel like I'm missing something that I normally say here. If you want that sunshine request by email. Send me an email or send JR an email at live@damradio.com. Send me one at samuelt@internationalflavor.com, and I will make sure that you get it. Continue to fight the good fight and have a very good night.